Right. Very good. I think we're live. I've got it shared out personally. So I think we are set to go. Hey, those of you watching now or later, I guess, thanks so much for joining us. This morning, we have Nathanael and Nicole Sommers with World Gospel Mission on the Texas-Mexico border. Guys, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, before we jump into questions with you all, I just want to let everybody else know real quickly. We are doing this as part of our missionary month at Mount Hope. So what we're doing is we're asking and inviting missionaries that have been with us at Mount Hope over the, I guess, really probably since about 2012. The Sommers were there in 2015, I think. Does that sound right? Sound right?
Yep.
But over the last few years, we've invited some missionaries, and we wanted to try to reconnect with some of them. And so every Tuesday and Thursday during the month of May, we've been inviting missionaries to sit down and chat with us. So we have the Sommers today, but next week, I want to go ahead and give you a little preview. Next week, we have Brandon and Azumi Kuba from Japan. And that one is actually going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time, just because they're on the other side of the world. So that one will be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. On May 21st, that Thursday, we have John and Julie Louder, who are missionaries with In Faith that serve in Corbin, Kentucky. They will be with us at 11 a.m. on the 21st. And then on the following Tuesday, the 26th, we'll have John and Lindsay Berkey, who serve with World Gospel Mission as well on the American Indian Field in Arizona. And then Sarah and I will finish up the last Thursday, May 28th, being interviewed by our board president, Jonathan King. So let's shift gears now and let's talk to the Sommers, guys. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Looks like we have quite a few people already jumping on, watching this, and so thank you so much if you are just now joining us. I do want to mention, if you have a question for the Sommers to answer live, you can send that to my email at Brett, BRETT, at mounthopebiblecamp.com, or you can simply put it in the comments of the Facebook Live, and I'll be sure to pass that along to them. So with that, guys, let's just jump in and would you guys care to share about the decision when you decided to first follow Jesus? Let's just start there.
So I grew up in a Christian home. So I attended church regularly. It really wasn't until about junior high when I joined a small group at my church. And I really had a leader who decided to invest in my life, to just constantly be pushing me towards just having that personal relationship with Christ. It wasn't until I was 13 in 8th grade when I finally decided to get baptized. You know, I thought it had to be some special thing. In reality, I was already in a relationship with Christ already. I had already made that commitment. But it wasn't until after a youth trip that I actually decided, like, I'm going to make this public. I'm going to share this with my Christian brothers and sisters. And from then on, I just dedicated my life to being a part of the kingdom of God and just serving Him. That's
about it. For me, I also grew up in the church, had an amazing Christian family, but I did not commit my life to Christ until much later in life. I grew up kind of knowing the answers, and I'm sure a lot of people can kind of relate to this. You know the Bible's full answers, you know the stories, you know what like your Christian parents want you to say. And so like I kind of just floated through school, high school and all that, just kind of doing what I knew I was supposed to do, to not get in trouble, but then also then doing all this stuff when I knew I wasn't going to get caught because I had no relationship with Christ. And a big part of that was that I had seen examples of like leaders or other people who were supposedly Christian who just failed dramatically. And I took that very personally, and also took that as like a mark against the church as a whole. And so for me, it was kind of like, okay, like I know my parents, like they definitely live what they, say, but I also see all these other, like examples of hypocrisy. So it was just confusing for me. And I was like, I don't know if this is actually a real thing. And so it wasn't until I was a freshman at university that I had a writing class where the prompt for one of our assignments was talk about your identity. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I, write through this? And I was at a Christian university because that was the family place to go. I didn't believe in it. And so I was there, and I was writing through it, and I realized I had always placed my identity in all the stuff that I could do, like whether I was a good soccer player or a good athlete in general, the accomplishments I had in my life, and that always defined me. And so now at university, like you're brand new, you have none of the accomplishments that you've had before. I had suffered an injury in soccer, so I couldn't even play soccer at the time. And so it was like everything I thought defined who I was, I didn't have any of it. And so this prompt really made me start thinking, and God spoke to me through that and was like, man, your identity isn't in all that stuff. Your identity is a son of God, and that's who I want you to be and are if you just accept me. And so through that writing prompt, I then gave my life to Christ and became a Christian at that point. And so yeah, it was a cool kind of beginning of my story.
That's awesome, guys. That's awesome. Hey, Nicole, I have a question. I'd like to follow up if you're willing.
Sure.
You said in your testimony there was some leaders in a small group setting that invested in you, and it's really been something that kind of we've talked a lot about with some of our teens. But can you just speak to that? What did that investment kind of look like in tangible ways? What did that small group leader or those people that surrounded you, what did that look like?
Yeah, so this leader, ironically, her name is also Nicole. And really what it looked like was her just like, yeah, I had to come to church or come to small group, but it was her keeping me accountable to these things, making sure that like I was reading my Bible, that I was actually dedicating time to him. But then not only that, just encouraging me to go on like youth conferences, encouraging me even after I was out of her group because she only did junior high, and staying in contact with me even through high school and just being there to talk, whether it was just venting about my parents or about school or, just whatever it was, and just being there, just being available. And I think that's really like the biggest aspect of it was just being there whenever I needed her to be, and sometimes when I didn't want her to be. So
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest aspect.
And
Yeah.
even now, I mean, her and her whole family and her husband, like they're family friends with us. They're one of the first couples that I met when we got engaged, and, started our, marriage process. And so like their influence has continued now into our marriage.
Man, I'm getting goosebumps, y'all. That's what the kingdom of God should look like, right?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, guys. Well, let's move from there into like, how did that lead you to where you are now? Like, what was your call to missions? How did that kind of unfold? And then why don't you go ahead and speak to like, how did you end up on the Texas-Mexico border?
All right. So my senior year of university, I had felt God calling me into the ministry my sophomore year, so a year after I gave my life to Christ. And then my senior year, I had no clue how that was actually going to look. And so I wanted to pursue sports ministry because I was an athlete and I really, felt passionately about the relationships that people form, when they're playing sports or doing really any activity, and the small group model in general. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have a degree in sports ministry, and I'm going to just kind of see where God takes me after that. And so I met WGM, World Gospel Mission, my senior year around Christmas time, because they have this like mission fair where a bunch of mission agencies go to Indiana Wesleyan, where we both went. And they just kind of talk to students. And so I started talking to one of the guys and was like, well, this is kind of like where my heart is. And I honestly have no clue what I'm doing with it. And so he started talking to me about a ministry that World Gospel Mission had in Barcelona, Spain. And I've always loved to travel, and I love going all over the place. So I was like, Europe and Barcelona, that's not bad. Like, sounds pretty nice. And they wanted us to do soccer ministry. Well, they wanted me to do soccer ministry in the streets with Moroccan immigrants in Barcelona. And so like all of it sounded amazing. And with my degree in sports ministry, I also had a degree in history. And so my specialization was church and Islamic relations in medieval times. And so I was like, okay, working with like mostly Muslims, like I've read the Quran, I understand, more than the average Joe about Islam. So I was like, this is just like perfect for me. And so I went ahead and joined WGM. I was single. We weren't even dating at the time. And so I believe became a missionary with WGM sometime in spring semester of my senior year. And so my plan was to go as a single dude to Barcelona, do soccer ministry. We started dating during finals week of senior year. And so it was right at the end there, which the reason it kind of took so long was because we had been like kind of dating on and off type of, not actually officially dating, but going on dates, stuff like that. But I was very hesitant to commit to anything because I was like, I'm moving to Europe. And so I didn't want to like commit, and she was like not happy with that. And so so we had a lot of conversation. And her degree was basically in
international community and development.
And so it actually fit perfectly with missions. And she wanted to work in the nonprofit world and develop communities and stuff. So she was like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what God has for me yet. So if we're going to work, like it's possible that I could be a missionary with you. And so we finally decided to, just, okay, let's see where this is going to go and see what God does with this. And so we started dating, and pretty immediately God kind of revealed that, like we were supposed to be together, and that missions was what we were both called to. And so I proposed in June of that summer. So we only dated for like, and we were engaged for a year. And during that year, she became a member of WGM, and we started moving forward in the fundraising process as a couple, and got married a year later, fundraised for about a year and a half more, right? 2 years or so, almost 3 years. And then yeah, we started our journey. But it wasn't to Barcelona, obviously. What happened was in our process, we got a phone call in October in the year before we actually were able to leave then. And it was from headquarters, and they said, hey, because of a bunch of different circumstances, we're shutting down the World Gospel Mission connection to Barcelona. It was kind of one of those things that was outside of even the agency's control, and it just happened, right? And so we were like, okay, how are we going to kind of manage that? We don't know what we're supposed to do now at all, and it was pretty tough. And they kind of gave us a few options. I believe Peru and the border were the main two spots that we kind of fit because of sports ministry. And so we were like, okay, let's pray about it. We'll figure it out. we get another phone call about a week later, and the board at WGM were like, hey, we really feel strongly that the border is where you should kind of check out. So we're like, okay, we'll get on a plane and we'll check it out. So we came down, and it was one of those, within about 30 minutes of being here with the other missionaries, seeing the ministry, we both looked at each other and were like, this is exactly where God has us. And so we just knew right away. And so we started fundraising full time. Shortly after that, we both quit our jobs and said, if we were going to do this, we're going to do it all out. And so we just trusted that God would provide the funds. And shortly after, he did, and we were able to come on down.
Wow. See, I don't know that if I did, I didn't remember the Barcelona piece.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Like I've heard that numerous times through these interviews. Is the plan was to go here, and then we got moved to here, right? And can you guys speak to that? Like, what were you experiencing internally? Like, was it a roller coaster? Like, did you question God in this? Like, what was your thoughts in the midst of this change?
Yeah, so me and Nathaniel felt very differently during this time. So we had about a month window that was just left up in limbo from when they said, yeah, you're not going to Spain unless you want to go with a different organization. Before then, they offered us Peru or the border. And Nathaniel over here, who had been headed to Spain for about a year longer than me, in his mind, he just like had no idea what was going on. He was kind of freaking out.
Yep.
He was like, where is my life going now? Where ironically for me, I was just calm about it. And I was able to comfort him.
This is a testimony of our entire lives, by the way, since that point. Like, I'm a roller coaster of emotion, and she's like, it's okay, calm down.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But it was tough having, because we had already even started fundraising, and had been fundraising for about a year at this point, part-time, and like then just being like, nope, you're not going there. So I mean, even with me just being pretty calm about it and just being trusting God, it was still tough being like, well, where are we going now? And people keep asking us like, like, are you going to be on the border, or are you going to be missionaries forever? And we're like, we don't know. Like, right. God taught us that very early on, that he has a plan. We don't know it. And we have to just trust him that, through everything. And so I think that was one of the biggest lessons we learned from that experience, was that like only God knows the plan, and you have to trust him.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And it's a must for a missionary, right? To be willing for your plans to be completely changed, but exactly what you said, we have to trust God above all, and his ways are higher and better than ours, right? So That's awesome. And from my perspective, and following you guys online, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. So that's beautiful. All right, so let me ask this question, because I think I'd shared with you even before we went live, just briefly. We have some of our staff members that I think are kind of in that place that they are considering missions. Some of them have even already taken like a gap year and even some mission trips, just some different things to kind of test the waters to see. But what would be your advice, I guess, to somebody considering missions?
Yeah. So if you feel that you have a calling to missions, or even if you're in that spot where you're like, I think I may, but I'm not quite sure, the very first thing I would say is seek affirmation. It's very obvious through scripture that God works through the affirmation of his church to be able to bring people into their calling and into ministry. And so that's not just going to someone and be like, hey, I'm thinking about this. And they're like, oh yeah, you'd be so good at that. Like, that's not what we're talking about. Actually go to people, sit them down, say, hey, this is the journey I've had so far up to this calling. And will you please spend time in prayer? And you don't even talk to me about this for like, a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever you are comfortable with. But like, I want you to pray about this, like really specifically. And then let's meet up again to talk about this and see what God has revealed to you about my calling. That's going to be the first step, and that's going to help give you a lot of clarity, because you may find that everyone you talk to after that time of prayer, they're like, yeah, we feel like God is also leading for this. Or you may find someone's like, you know what, I think you'd be really good at that, but I don't know if that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And that can help you really kind of walk through it, because I mean, we're just emotional about it. That's who we are as humans. And so we can get very excited. And just because something is a really good thing doesn't mean that it's what you're supposed to be doing. And so one of the best piece of advice I got when I first went to somebody with my calling, he was a pastor, and he'd been a pastor for a long time, and he had actually been a missionary in the Philippines before that. And so he understood what it was to be a missionary, and also to then go into ministry with the local church. And he was like, I think that's really good. And he knew me, my family, and everything. And he was like, I would just say this: pray about it, think about it, and if there's literally anything else you can do, you better do that, because ministry will tear you up and spit you out. And so you need to know for sure this is what you're called to do. And so take it seriously. It's not just another job. It's a calling on your life. So yeah, seek affirmation for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's funny that you mentioned the way you started about using God's community, right? To help confirm that or affirm your move forward in missions. In our discipleship group, which in the midst of COVID-19 has turned to Zoom, right? Yep. We were talking, we've been going through Bob Goff's book, Love Does. And he finishes off one of the chapters, and I'm not going to say it right exactly, but the gist of it is sometimes God passes us messages, but most often he passes us people. And
that's really good.
That has really just stuck out to me. Yes, he can use his word and he can use other things, but a lot of times he is just built into the design of his creation to use other people to confirm our moves forward. And so, yeah, that's awesome, guys. I appreciate that advice, and I know those listening will as well. Hey, let's transition and let's talk about what you all do. Like there on the Texas-Mexico border, like give us a feel for like what roles you play in the mission there with World Gospel, and then maybe even talk about like who you minister to specifically, and any stories that you want to throw in there, please feel free.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. So I am the community center director down here for Taylor Community Center. I'm sure most of you guys have an idea of what a director does. Basically, I oversee all of the ministries that fall underneath the community center. So with that, with missions, things are constantly changing. So sometimes we have certain ministries, sometimes we have others, but we have two main ones that have been here for the entire duration that we've been down here and are going to continue. And those two are our Soccer Lanes Academy, which is an academy for ages 4 through 12. And it's just an academy where we specifically pour into smaller groups of teams and into not only our kids, but also into our parents. And we actually have a lot of people who are not Christians who come to our league knowing that our academy, because it's a Christian academy, and the city league is just terrible. If you guys know anything about Latin America or South America, soccer is very big, which also means parents are very
passionate.
Yes, that would be a good word. Passionate. And that does not necessarily bring out the best in them.
Yeah.
Even though it's their kids playing. And And so we have a lot of non-believers just coming into our academy, just looking for a safe place for their kids to be able to get exercise, maybe learn a new skill. And then on top of that, we do share the gospel, as well as just teach like biblical principles of like teamwork and just obedience, those basic things that these kids need to learn just to be able to function in society well. The other big ministry that we have is our Sparrow's Nest, and that is our clothing pantry. And it by no means is just clothes. We have a lot more than clothes, but our main thing that we have in there is clothes. And this ministry is for immigrants or in low-income families. And it's, if anybody knows, kids grow fast, and it is hard to keep them in clothes and shoes. And so this ministry is just there to be able to minister to our families, provide a need for them, so that then we can build a relationship and then share the gospel with them in that way. Mm-hmm. I do also a myriad of different things, like I'm in charge of all of our work teams that come down. I also teach 2 different specials at Taylor Christian School, technology and physical education. So I stay pretty busy.
Yeah, she's really good at what she does. So for me, my official title is Director of Strategic Initiatives. That's just fancy talk, where basically I do like graphics and marketing, make sure that we're able to get some of our fundraising material put together. I run all the events, and so if we have an event at the school or the community, I'm the event coordinator for all of that. I manage our partnerships in the local area, and so that's other churches, other organizations that are doing things. So a couple of our partner organizations include like a emergency housing for kids being pulled out of homes due to neglect and abuse, and so we help them be able to, work with their kids, stay open and help disciple. We work with some organizations that do ministry right across the border in Reynosa, and just kind of help them with their physical needs, as well as just opportunities to teach classes or get them what they need. And so a lot of networking, a lot of like talking with people and just making sure that the kingdom is able to run the best that it can down here on the border. And so I really enjoy that. And then my other half of my job is on staff at Storehouse Community Church, a local church here that we got plugged in with as our own church when we first moved here. And God kind of just opened the door for me to jump on board about 3 years ago to help them out in different capacities. And so right now, what I do is I'm the director of missional community. So basically all of our small groups and all of our community life, I go ahead and manage that, as well as all the Sunday morning, like serving teams. I manage Sunday morning, basically. And so, those are my 2 main areas of ministry.
Yeah, that's awesome, guys. As I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, yeah, that sounds pretty much like missionary life. Like it's a little bit of everything, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
It really is. But it's loving on people all the while, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's beautiful. Hey, I got a question though. This may be a little funny, and I can only imagine Nicole's response to this. But who's the better soccer player?
Between us?
Yeah.
we have slightly different styles. He has a little better footwork. I'm maybe a little more aggressive. So.
I love it. I love it. Well, I seen pictures online, so I was curious. I wondered who was the better player, and if the other would admit to it.
Well, what I have going for me is that, especially the guys down here, are very wary of playing with women.
Yeah.
And so they often underestimate me.
Yep.
Or they're afraid of me because they think they're going to break me or something or whatever. And then I just come and swoop in, and they're like, what?
That's awesome.
Play? Yes, I can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, let me ask this. Since you've been on the field, is there a particular story of life change or something that kind of just pops out in your mind that just stands out that, yeah, this would be a good picture of what we do on the field?
Yeah. So I thought of two things when I was thinking about this. One of them happened within our first year of being here, and Nicole and I really had a desire to run these day tournaments, which unfortunately, I mean, ministry is always fluctuating, so unfortunately, it doesn't work all seasons. But basically, what it was is we would invite a bunch of people together and have maybe like 8 teams play small-sided games of indoor soccer in the gymnasium that we have. And it would just be one day and then a champion's crowned at the end, and that's it, right? And so very short windows of opportunity for investment. But life is so transient down here. People are always moving away and coming back. You just never know, when people are going to be around. So we were doing those, and Nicole was organizing the entire thing and making it all kind of happen. And in between matches, I was just talking with some of the dudes that were there playing. And there's this one guy that I was talking to, and he had just come in to McAllen for like the weekend to visit a family member. And then he was going back somewhere in North Texas. And so he was just there and got invited to play. So he was playing. So I was talking with him, and we started talking about Jesus, and he gave his life to Christ right then and there. And so that was the very first time we had seen fruit in the terms of salvation, very early in the ministry down here. And it was cool to see how God used something that he's not even using anymore today, but yet in that moment, in that space, it had a very specific purpose, And so that was really awesome. And then another one that I thought of that's more recent is one of the ministries that I run through our small groups at the church is something called Recovery Group. And what we basically do is it's a group that meets together for just about 8 weeks, and it's for anyone struggling with habitual sin or addiction of some kind. And so we get anything from substance abuse to dealing with anger issues to sexual sin, like really anything that people are like, I just can't seem to like let this go. And it's become an idol in their life, or it's rooted in idolatry. And so we meet, and I teach what scripture teaches about sin and our relationship with God and idolatry. And then we just talk. And it's kind of loosely based off of 12-step programs like AA, where it's about, man, these are some ways that you can kind of work through what's happening in your life. And so last year we had this one guy who was part of it, and seeing his growth in just a short amount of time, where one day it was after class toward the end, and we had just been kind of bouncing around a few things, and I had talked about how it is not possible for us to be able to kick our sin. We can never in our own power say, I'm no longer going to do that, because I mean, really, we want to do sin. That's why it's so hard for us to stop. And so I was like, it's not us that can do it. So the more you try to make yourself stop doing whatever sin you're struggling with, the more you're going to fail, and the more discouraged you become. The only way for you to stop is if God intercedes and the Holy Spirit releases you from that. And that requires you to submit your life and submit this sin to him and trust that God is going to save you. And so he just like, his mind was just blown with it. And he was like, I have never thought about that. Like, I thought about it like that. I've always thought I have to try harder. And that always made me feel like I just was a failure. And I'm like, it's not you. Like, you need to focus on your relationship with God. God will take care of this sin in your life. And seeing that click in his head, I was just like, man, that's what it's about. That's so cool to see just God and the Holy Spirit revealing things to him, where he was able to then grow exponentially after that point in his relationship with God, which resulted in him being able to say that sin is no longer an issue. And it was just so cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, guys, let me ask this question. What has been one of the biggest challenges for you on the field?
I would say one of the most I guess enduring ones since the beginning till the end has definitely been separation from family. It's especially like we came in our mid-20s and young. Our siblings are young and having their children, and so we've missed a lot of our nephews and niece and how they've kind of grown up. Every single time we see them, it's almost like they're a new person because kids change so rapidly, you know. I remember one of the cool things that's happened in quarantine is Zoom has become much more common. And so we've actually talked with our families even more than we did before because we just do Zoom calls now with them. And I remember the very first Zoom call in March with my family. One of my nephews, he is 4 now, he had been delayed in his speech and because his older brother always just talked for him. You know, it was one of those situations. And so like he never really said anything before we left. And so I hadn't really ever heard him put together any kind of thought or, you know, anything like that. And all of a sudden he comes on and he's just chatting away. And I was like, what? This is awesome. Like, when did this happen? And it was really cool. But at the same time, I mean, that's painful to be like, man, I missed that. I missed their first steps. I miss them, you know, being able to go through some of these things that define who they are, you know, and character. And so that's definitely been difficult for us, and will continue to be. But it's a part of it, and I'm thankful that God has provided so many cool digital ways now to stay connected because we're able to be more involved than ever, even in our time in ministry.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely the sacrifice, right, of accepting God's call. Sometimes there is, but then there are ways, as you mentioned, that are just creative and innovative to be able to just try to stay connected, even hundreds and thousands of miles apart. Yeah, awesome. All right, well, let me ask this question. Let me flip the tables. What is maybe the most enjoyable or the best part about being a missionary?
I feel like the best part is because missions is basically anything. Even though, sometimes, certain ministries don't work out, but others do. And like something doesn't work out. Okay, we come up with a different idea. And so I feel like that's the best part, that we're not stuck in this one spot. Basically, we can do anything that we put our minds to, or any idea we have, or any need that we see in the community. And I think that's the best part, is just being able to be so flexible in our work, being able to basically do anything that we want.
Yeah. You never know what it's going to need, especially with how people move all the time. It could be a different family. Like, since we've lived in this house for about 2 years now, we've lived here, we've had 3 different neighbors because people just move, you know? And so, I mean, one group of people, ministry doesn't look the same for them as it does the next group. And so having the ability to change what we do to be able to impact, the community the best, that's not possible in a lot of jobs. And so we're able to then do that. That's definitely a plus.
Yeah, I would totally agree. You got to be able to be flexible, but it's exciting to see that creativity come alive as you minister to the needs of the people around you. That's awesome. All right, well, guys, let's do this. Let me take just a quick second for those of you watching. If you have a question that you'd like to submit for the Sommers to answer live, please go ahead and do that. You can put it in the comments of the Facebook Live, or you can send it to Brett@MountHopeBibleCamp.com. But let's shift gears to kind of what our day 3 would look like if you were standing in front of our campers at Mount Hope. Kind of day 1 is how we kind of structure it, is your testimony and call to missions. Day 2 is kind of what things look like on the field. And then day 3 is a challenge for how we as Mount Hope can stay connected with you. And so let's kind of shift gears to that route or whatever, I guess we're thinking here. What's some ways that we can kind of stay connected with what you're doing? And let's just start there.
So we have a Facebook page, which Brett, I believe you posted the link to. which we try to keep updated with new developments in ministry or just things that are happening. So that's a good way to kind of see some of the more, I don't want to say mundane, but the daily type things, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so that would definitely be really good. We also do newsletters, which go out quarterly. And so we do those through email, and one mail at the end of the year for Christmas is actually mailed out. And so if you want to be a part of that, then definitely contact us. Do so through Facebook, or my email is nathanael.sommers@wgm.org. And so you could always just request, hey, can I be a part of those newsletters and kind of hear what is going on? And those newsletters will kind of give you a big snapshot of, okay, what's been happening in these past 3 months and maybe what's coming up in the future. And so that will be bigger picture. And so those are two ways to kind of give you two different views of what ministry is happening and how it's going to develop. And if we have any other special things that ever go out, being part of that mailing list will be the perfect way to make sure that you're going to, receive those announcements.
Yeah, great. All right, and then here's the next thing is missionaries. We can always use some partners to come along in giving financially, right?
Yep.
It's always seems like a consistent need. And so would you guys care to talk about that? How could somebody give if they wanted to kind of join you and partner with you?
Yeah, the easiest way to give would be wgm.org/Sommers. That will take you to our giving page on the WGM website, and it is easy to do. You can set up credit card, debit card, whatever you want to do. Definitely the best option. And so that would be awesome. I mean, we always need supporters. Every single missionary that I've ever talked to during the middle of a term, it's common for people just to drop off here and there, whether drop off their support, and that's just a part of it. And so we're about halfway through our current term, and so we've experienced that where we've had supporters drop off. So we are not 100%, still trusting God to carry us through the end of our term. But yeah, we could always use all the help.
Okay, so Mount Hope, you heard it. The challenge is out there. The challenge is out there. Let's step up and try to help the Sommers here. Let me ask this question too, is I think, Nicole, you mentioned that you kind of help direct or lead mission teams, right?
Yes.
So could you speak to that? Like, what if Mount Hope organized a team to come down to the border? What could that look like, and what would kind of be the process for us in setting that up?
Right. So down here, we try to tailor every trip to the team that's coming. Because some teams come down and they have skilled workers in maybe mechanics or construction. So we'll put them to help us in a certain way that best utilizes their talent. And so obviously if a different team came, they would not be able to do the same job. So we tailor every team specific to what their abilities are. Really, it's pretty simple. You can either contact me or headquarters and they can hook you up. Pretty simple. You can come down for 3 days. You can come down for 2 weeks. And really, we talk to you guys and see what you guys are interested in doing. We have a variety of different ministries down here. If you want to do evangelism, we'll take you out and we'll do street evangelism. If you want to help in the school, you can help work in the school. If you want to do construction projects, or if you want to do sports ministry, we'll plug you in there. And we even work with some of our partners as well. Like, not all of our teams just solely work with us, because we're not the only ones working for the kingdom of God down here. And so it's really dependent on what the team wants to do and what their abilities are. And it's, we really just talk with you guys about what you guys want and what you guys can do. And it's specific to every single team. So
that sounds awesome. Yeah. Okay. So be expecting a call sometime soon. Because Tejadas have kind of already kind of roped us in. They're slowly pulling us in. So you guys are just kind of adding to that. So we have got to commit to that here upcoming. That's for certain. We'd love to come down and join you all in ministry. All right. Well, let me wrap up with one final question, and that is, how can we be praying for you? Is there anything specifically that we could be lifting up in prayer for you guys and praying? So.
Yeah. So the biggest thing right now is that as of March, Nicole and I are new foster parents. And so we have 3 kids. We have a 6-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. We have never been parents before. And so we jumped straight to 3. And so it has been a wild trip, especially because quarantine started a week later. And so we could definitely use all the prayers, and just ask, especially for me, like, patient and understanding, because I mean, it is foster care too. And so the reality is that we're dealing with certain traumas and everything else that it makes it difficult for us, to be able to best love them and also know how to approach certain situations where, certain parenting techniques that we're familiar with just from, being kids ourselves with our parents, we're like, well, you can't do that just because it's based in trauma. It's not normal behavior, right? And so that is difficult. And so patience for us, and that we can, grow in our relationships with children, and that they begin to trust us and trust that, their new normal is good, and that it's something that it's okay to adjust to. So that would be our biggest prayer.
Okay.
I think one more would also be just to continue praying for the community center. We are doing a campaign right now to finish our community center building. That includes putting AC in the entire building. It gets very hot down here. Yeah. And with that also comes with needing to finalize vision of where we would like to go in the future in the next couple of years with the community center. So if you guys could just be praying for wisdom about where the direction of our community center is headed.
And donors for that too, because it's going to be a very expensive project. Obviously, it's construction. And so that's called the Taylor Transformation Project. And more information will be put out on our page, as well as, our newsletter and other avenues. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, contact us or keep an eye on all of our avenues of communication, and you'll be able to hear all the stuff that's coming out. But it's going to be exciting to see what God does with finishing some of our projects.
Okay. Well, guys, for those of you watching, I just want to let you know, if you're just now joining, which I know some people are, we are wrapping up now, but this will be also up on our website and our mobile app, as well as on Facebook. So you can catch that there, and the links that we have shared in the comments will also be available on the app and website as well. So you guys can stay connected with the Sommers. Hey guys, thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you were busy homeschooling, and I'm sure you got 100 other things to be doing, but we appreciate you taking the time to join us and chat with us this morning. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the live feed.
Thank you.